And a million faces formed together, made for elevation. And my soldier won't surrender faith as I can fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard, love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up, heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up, heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up, it's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from my cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up, heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up, heart is beating faster, feels like thunder, magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have
I gotta take me off the mute there. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Straight Talk with Joe Vollano. I am glad you are here with us today. We have a lot to talk about. It is first of all, it was an absolutely gorgeous day out there today. If you did not get out there and enjoy that weather, you missed out. I know we had a great time today. We had a little cookout. So it was awesome. So I hope you guys had a wonderful day. But of course, it's 7 o'clock on Sunday, so we get down to business. And the business is getting you informed on what's going on in the world around you. And there is an awful lot that is going on in the world around you that is extremely important because it's going to affect you on a daily basis. Obviously, inflation is out of control. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about a little criminal justice. We're going to talk about bail and cash bonds and all that kind of good stuff because it is important. And then we have some local stuff we'll get into. But, of course, as always, I am Joe Vollano. I am your host, your guiding light through all this craziness and madness going on. And hopefully bring a little common sense to the conversation on what the hell is going on down there in Washington, because it is an absolute crap show down there. Inflation at 9.1%, and they're looking just to spend more and more of your hard-earned money. So we'll talk about that. But again, this show always works best when you are involved in it. So if you want to call in, 203-679-9610. That is the hotline in. Or you could email us, straighttalkjv@gmail.com. And, of course, if you're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch, you're more than welcome to jump onto the message board. It is off and running, and I see everybody starting to join in. So let's get down to business. We got to put one more thing up because it is election time, so therefore we will put it on there, paid for. Our little disclaimer that the SEC makes us put up there for no apparent reason. I don't know why, but whatever, it's there. So obviously the big question, the big story of the week is inflation and spending. Those are the two big things that are going on in the country today. Obviously, I'm going to throw it on up here. There it is. Inflation in America for the last year and a half. Listen, we hit 9.1 last month, so it looks like we're going to continue that again this year. But this is since Joe Biden has taken office. This is the trend that we've had, and now obviously Democrats are trying to get away from these numbers, but this is the reality of America today. And while we're sitting here on 9.1% inflation, the average income is up 5.1%. And Democrats are trying to cheer that on as something miraculous. But does anyone remember what happened last year and to this year? What happened with the minimum wage? The minimum wage went up to $15 an hour in many states. This is where you're seeing wages up 5.1%. So these are your entry-level jobs. These aren't your career jobs. Everybody that's already making over $15 an hour is not seeing a 5.1% increase in their salaries. That's just not happening. No matter how much the Democrats want to try to spin these numbers, what is happening is indeed the inflation of 9.1%. And what does that constitute as? And I'm glad you asked, because I'm going to throw this up here next. These are the notable price hikes that have happened in June, and where we stand in June compared to where we were at the beginning of 2021. Eggs are up 33%. Butter is up 21%. Milk's up 16%. Gasoline, the lifeblood of the economy, is 59%. With airfares going up 34%. Mostly all of these are going up because of fuel prices. That's why a majority of these prices are going up. Now, Democrats again will say, oh, well, gasoline's coming down. You're right, gasoline is coming down. But does anyone know why gasoline's coming down? for those of you who are not in the fuel business and probably would never know unless you're in commodities, the energy sector is based off a 90-day prediction of where it's going to be. So if we see an economy that's going to be going strong or there's a shortage, prices are going to go up, supply and demand. If they see that the need for fuel is going to go down and we're going to have a surplus, well, therefore, gasoline and diesel prices go down. So in the short term, yes, you're going to see a downtick in gasoline because that tells you that the economy is slowing. And that's exactly what's happening. We were in the starts of a recession. And a recession is the technical definition. I want to make sure that everybody understands the technical definition of a recession, because this is something that the White House and liberals and Democrats are trying to spin as if all of a sudden this does not equate to what's happening now. But yet, if you looked at 2008, this is exactly what they were saying. They made sure they came out and told us what the definition was. And it's a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP, which is the gross domestic product, in 2 consecutive quarters. We are in a recession as of the other day. We are technically the definition of a recession. Now, again, it's an election year. So now Joe Biden, who again is on quarantine again for COVID, who's running the show over there? Even though I don't think he's running the show either way. But who's running the show over there now? It's crazy. But we are in right now in a recession. By the definition that every liberal and Democrat has known. So let's not make any qualms about it. We are in a recession. This is where we're at. And the problem is the administration and people in Washington are not addressing it. Instead, what they're trying to do is spend their way out of it, which is the most ridiculous thing. If anyone remembers the 70s, that's what Jimmy Carter tried doing. You cannot spend your way out of recession. You only in the long term make it worse. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Let me bring this one up. So if you look at the inflation timeline, this is what you get. So in 2021, you had, obviously, Biden was inaugurated and he cancels the Keystone Pipeline. That started to shoot energy prices up. In fact, I wish I had grabbed the graph that we showed you guys a while ago. But I don't have it to my fingertips. And then they passed a $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. This is that $1,400 that everybody was so excited about, that I said was going to come back to bite you guys in the ass. Well, really not just you guys, everybody. Everybody. And then they proposed the $3.9 trillion budget plan, which it originally then did pass. So now you're at 3.9 plus $1.9 trillion. So now you're at 6 trillion. Then he signs the infrastructure bill, which is another trillion. His State of the Union address, which many of us who are in the energy sector, we're just looking for anything. We were looking for anything because at that point, gas prices were through the roof. If anyone remembers, gas prices were through the roof. And we were all just trying to find something to grasp onto to sit there and say, hey, he's making a change. And he didn't. And then he announces the federal student loan forgiveness program. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with that, let me bring that up for you guys. Here it is. So forgiving $10,000 of everybody's loans would be $380 billion, which they spent. That's $380 billion. And there was 1.76 in outstanding debt, which is 7.2% of GDP. Now, you would have thought that because it was in April, that it would have done something for the GDP. That you would have thought that they would have done something for the GDP. It would have increased it because you had less debt. No, it did the opposite. It's getting opposite. And of course, we had the baby formula shortage, which really didn't affect. That wasn't really due to inflation. That was due to a contamination in the Michigan plant. So I'm going to take that one out. But then the Democrats are pushing their climate change bill. Now remember, we're at a 9.1% inflation rate right now, which means we are spending way too much money. That means there's way too much money out in the system. That is why inflation is so high. There is too much money, not enough materials or services to sit there and leverage that off. That is why inflation is so high. So instead of trying to cut money, and cut taxes, what do Democrats in Democrat fashion do? They sit there and they're going to push a Green New Deal. Now, for those of you who don't know what they're passing, listen here. Because only Democrats would sit there and say that this is an inflation. This is an inflation bill. We're going to use this to combat inflation. Now, when you hear that, obviously you're thinking, "Oh my God, they're cutting taxes. They're cutting spending. They're going to cut spending." And they come out and Chuck Schumer, who is the majority leader of the Senate, comes out and says, "Well, the Inflation Reduction Act, we're going to raise $739 billion. Now, when they say raise, that means they're taxing somebody. Because the government cannot all they can do is make money. So if they just make $739 trillion, that's going to shoot inflation higher even more. Because now you've got another, $750 billion out there in the universe that has nowhere to go. So they're going to raise taxes, $739 billion. But don't worry, it's only on corporations. And we've had this discussion before. Corporations do not pay taxes. At the end of the day, they pass those taxes on to the consumers. That is how it has worked. But again, we've talked about this extensively over the years. It's easy for Democrats to say, "No, we're taxing businesses so they can pay their fair share." Because they can't come out and say, "Well, we're just going to tax you guys and you're going to pay for it." So Democrats are allowed to say, "Oh, no, they're the problem. They're not paying their fair share." Businesses are in the business of making money for their investors. No, ultimately, that's you. That's you in your 401ks that are buying stock in these companies. At no time does raising taxes on corporations move our economy in the right direction. It only halters it. But it allows the Democrats to give you your victim card. You're a victim to the big businesses. You're a victim to Exxon. You're a victim to the mortgage companies. You're a victim to everything. Because the only one you're truly a victim to are the Democrats. That's the only ones you're victim to. But they're going to give you a bad guy so that you don't blame them. So they're going to raise, so now keep that number in mind. They're going to raise $739 billion. Then they're going to invest. Now, when they say invest, that is just another term for we're going to spend $433 billion in climate incentives. Now, remember, this is an inflation. This is an Inflation Reduction Bill. That's what it's called. The Inflation Reduction Act is the name of this bill. So they're going to raise $739 billion in taxes, in tax revenue. So now you would think that $739 billion was going to go to offset the $6 trillion we already spent, right? And therefore would reduce the inflation. So this bill would be accurately labeled as an Inflation Reduction Act if they were taking that $739 billion and using it for that. But no, they're investing or they're spending $433 billion in climate incentives, claiming it will reduce carbon pollution roughly 40% by 2030. First of all, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. It's not going to do that. It's going to go the same thing as Solantra or whatever the hell, that solar company that Obama threw money at in 2006 that went bankrupt. All these places that get all the subsidized money ends up going bankrupt. But we're going to continue to push this green energy crap that just doesn't work. It's proven that it doesn't work. Even those people that believe that electric cars, all those people that believe that these electric cars are the end-all be-all and we're doing something great, have no idea what the carbon footprint of those cars are. And the fact that when they plug them in, they're plugging them in to a source that gets their power from a diesel generator. Most of the power plants are run on diesel. So it's all just one big myth. But to make everybody feel good and to pad the pockets of all their Democrat friends who own all these damn, clean, green energy companies, that's where that money's going to go. So now remember, they're raising $739. And they're putting $433 billion into climate initiatives. So that leaves us with what? $297 million. $297 million. If we spend another $279 million, we would match that $739, therefore offsetting it. And then you would say, all right, well, it's not an Inflation Reduction Act. It's just an offset. But they're going to spend another $370 billion for investments in clean energy, clean transportation, energy storage, farming, home electrification, and clean tech. And in their eyes, the planet is on fire. Let's get it done. So they're going to invest. Again, that means they're going to spend money we don't have to further the green initiative. This is the Green New Deal 2.0. But remember, this is a Inflation Reduction Bill that is set at $739 billion in new taxes. But now they're going to spend $433 billion and $370 billion. So last time my math, that was over $800 billion. How can this be an Inflation Reduction Act when you're only raising $739 billion, but you're spending over $800 billion of money, again, that we don't have and we'll need to print? Only in the eyes of a liberal. Only in the eyes of Washington Does this make any sense? Only in Washington does this make any sense. While we are sitting out here suffering, scraping and clawing to make ends meet. While out here, senior citizens are doing their best to make ends meet on a fixed income. And they have the nerve to turn around and say this is an Inflation Reduction Act when they're spending over $70 billion more than what they're taking in. How are you reducing anything? Anything. You're not. And anyone who says otherwise is lying to your face because the numbers are right here. Manchin isn't my idol. He's not my idol. And he's a Democrat last time I checked. This is a joke. And this is trying to pull the wool over your eyes by saying, look what we're doing for inflation. We're doing our jobs down here. We're doing our jobs. We're putting down this bill. We're going to tax these damn businesses. We're going to tax these corporations. And they're the bad guys and we're going after them. At the end of the day, you're taking it right up to you know what. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest with each other. They're all in it together. They're all in it together. The corporations are giving these people their campaign checks. And they're getting their money right back. At the end of the day, you get screwed. We even talked about the original Green Deal plan 2 weeks ago. We talked about it about 2 years ago when it first came up. But this isn't an Inflation Reduction Act. And so, yes, when people act accordingly and act like they should on behalf of the people, you will get praised. And when you don't, you will be criticized. That is politics. But the citizens of this country can't afford this. And I think it's really disingenuous to turn around. And I think anyone, that's why I say November can't come fast enough. It really can't. It really can't. Because I think there is a huge red wave coming. Especially here. I definitely think George Logan, in fact, we got to get him on the show. He's been on a couple times before. George Logan has a shot to take out Joanna Hayes. And we need to make sure he takes out Joanna Hayes. Because she's all for the Green Deal. And for her to sit there and support this and coming home and telling people this is an Inflation Reduction Act is absolute absurdity. And she should be held accountable for it. You can't turn around. You can't turn around and say these numbers and these numbers and you don't want to do anything to address this. We are in a recession. If we don't do something about it quickly, it will turn into a depression. You can't have these type of numbers in less than a year and a half, and you're up over 7% of inflation. At some point, it's going to turn into superinflation. And that's when things really get messy. We need to end this charade now. because we are in for a long-term effect. And look what's happening already in the housing market. Look what's happening in the housing market. Because now you got the feds trying to catch up. Because even they have said that they missed it. But I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised they missed it. Because quantitative easing only gets you so much, only allows you to counteract a certain amount of money. We need to get this under control, and we need to cut spending. Cutting spending is the only way to fix it. Because what's going to happen is you're going to have the Fed already went up a full point. Now they're up 3/4 of a point. What most people don't realize is that's why the housing market is starting to slow down. Because now mortgages become harder to get. You got a much higher interest rate. Buying a car is harder. Credit cards have higher fees. All this stuff that are used to purchase goods and services now become much harder to do, which is why you start to see the slowdown, which again is in the short term, which is why you're seeing gasoline start coming down. Because a 90-day prediction of that is, well, we're not going to need that much because the economy has slowed. So now we're going to have an oversupply, and therefore our prices are going to come down. That's only going to last for a couple months. Because come September, October, November, December, does anyone know what hits next? Heating season. Heating season hits. And the demand for diesel goes through the roof. It's going to go through the roof. And I've already told my customer, prepare for a tough winter. Prepare for a very tough winter. Because nothing in this administration has shown that they're going to do anything about inflation. This bill just proves that they have absolutely no intention of slowing down their spending. Because they're going to call an Inflation Reduction Act. The Inflation Reduction Act that actually spends more money than it takes in. I need a liberal to please make me understand how this bill reduces inflation. By all means, here is the number. 203-679-9610. Which one of you Democrats, which one of you liberals are going to call me and tell me how this bill reduces inflation? Because the numbers alone out of Democrats show it does not. It doesn't. You can't take in $740 billion and spend $80 billion and call it a reduction. Only in Washington, I guess. I don't know how you figure decarbonizing the economy and replace it with electric. I love this because especially in Connecticut, because they're going to give tax credits for green energy manufacturing of electric trucks and buses. Didn't Connecticut just pull all their electric buses out of service? Because the damn thing's caught on fire? Only in Connecticut is the irony so thick around here. But let's go give all these tax credits to electric trucks and buses. Oh, I almost forgot. I'm sorry. Let's not forget the $60 billion. I almost forgot about the $60 billion. You know, it seems like such a small amount when we're talking about this. The bill also includes $60 billion for environmental justice priorities. Let me repeat that again. The bill also includes $60 billion for environmental justice priorities to address disappropriate environmental and public health harms related to pollution, and climate change. I can't even tell you what the hell that means. I can't even tell you what it means. What I can tell you, all those words equal redistribution of wealth. Redistribution of wealth to liberal cities and states. That's what that means. Environmental justice priorities. What the hell is that? What the hell is an environmental justice priority? To address disappropriated environmental and public health harms related to pollution and climate change. I am dying to know what the hell that even means. But again, I don't see a single liberal that could come out here and tell me what the hell that means. But they will come out and say, "Oh, this is great. This is, we're moving in the right direction away from fossil fuels." We're not. We're not. Because like we said before, the carbon footprint of a battery to get the battery here, because they're made overseas, they're not made here, is just as much, if not more, than just a regular carbon car. But they think this is a major accomplishment. And I love this quote. Every single one of these things that's in this bill is actually a major accomplishment, will help Americans bring costs down while ensuring we protect the planet for the next generation. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. You haven't studied the bill. I just told you what the bill is. These are the numbers coming from Democrats. These are the numbers coming from Chuck Schumer himself. It's absolutely crazy to me. But our far left is so excited about this. But that's not all they're going to do. No. Oh, this bill is the bill that keeps on giving, ladies and gentlemen. This is the bill that keeps on giving. Because after they're spending all that money, they're creating a new bureaucracy. Remember we talked about last week? Rosa DeLauro wants to make the FDA their own separate entity altogether. So we're going to increase that bureaucracy there. Well, come on. That has to be undone. So Senator Markley put this out there because this is in the bill. As we work to finalize this legislation, this is what he tweeted. As we work to finalize this legislation, I'm proud this draft includes my provisions on environmental justice mapping. That is an interesting set of words there. My provisions on environmental justice mapping. Billions in funding to create a national climate bank that prioritizes disadvantaged communities and incentives for domestic clean energy like offshore wind. First of all, offshore wind is the biggest loser of all. Go ask anybody living in Cape Cod. Go ask anyone on Black Island. It is the biggest losers. It's so expensive to maintain. It kills the wildlife around it, which you would think that PETA and them would be having a friggin' fit. But a provision of on environmental justice mapping that's going to literally funnel billions of dollars to what they see as disadvantaged communities. Again, it's called distribution of wealth. It means we're going to take from here and give it to our friends. That's what liberals in Connecticut do. That's what liberals in Connecticut are doing right now. All those billions of dollars of budget surplus that we have from taxes that they don't need, that we paid, they're not coming back to you. They're going to their Democrat friends in their Democrat cities. That's where it's going to. It's not coming back to us where it should. Well, Craig, show me where I'm wrong. Give me an alternative energy that has not been a loser. That has not have to been hugely subsidized. It's just facts. They're just facts. It is still the carbon and fossil fuels are still the cheapest and most effective way to run our economy. Which is why it is the lifeblood of our economy. Joe Biden said it himself. We are going to cut Russia's energy production so that we can hurt their economy. Joe, you did the same friggin' thing here, buddy. Do you think that doesn't apply to us? That doesn't apply to us? Come on. Come on now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is liberal thinking. This is liberal thinking. This is what I'm trying to get through to people's heads. If you just stop and use common sense and just look at what they're saying, it just doesn't add up. This bill is a prime example of that. You're at almost $900 billion when all is said and done. And they're going to take in 739. And they're calling this an Inflation Reduction Act. Again, only in Washington in liberal minds. Does this make any sense? And if you sit there and actually say the facts, they make you try to seem like you're the crazy one. But these numbers, again, don't lie. These are right from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is what you're doing. And we have a choice come November. We really do have a choice come November. Do we want to increase? Do we want to keep this going up? Maybe we could hit 10%. Maybe we could hit 10%. I'm not a climate denier. In fact, you know what was really interesting? My last couple of hours in San Francisco. I'll tell you a quick story. I was in San Francisco, obviously, the other week. And me and my son were in a Tesla, Ubering back to the airport. And of course, our Uber driver was a hardcore liberal. Not realizing, obviously, thinking that, obviously someone's in San Francisco, you have a 90% chance that they're a liberal too. Well, he made the mistake and he thought that I was a liberal. And of course, he starts talking about climate change and this and that. And I'm like, well, wait a minute here. And he's saying, how people need to stop doing this and this and this, da, da, da. And there's one question I just ask. And I ask this to anyone who is for climate change and who's sitting there talking about a couple of degrees Celsius, this and that. And they always say that, oh, humans are the reason for it. Now, again, I'm not a climate denier. Is the climate changing? Yes. The climate is changing all the time. We live in a very dynamic environment. For billions of years, we have seen the climate get warmer and colder, which is why we have ice ages, which is why we have heat time, the high temperatures. And every liberal who goes on this whole crusade of global climate change, when you bring up one fact, and that is the ice cores of either the north or south. If you look at the ice cores that scientists say is the holy grail of climate, where we could tell what was happening for billions of years, how can we turn around and say, well, we had no humans back then, that we know of at least. We definitely didn't have pollution going on. Why did we have climate changes back then? And the answer is pretty simple. Because of the sun. Because of the sun. When we have solar flares, we have warmer temperatures here. When we don't have solar flares. That, again, this is just one example. When we don't have solar flares, usually when you had your ice ages. And this is stuff that have been proven by scientists all over this world. But nobody wants to talk about it. And why is now, again, and then the next thing that we would talk about. Back in the 1940s, 1950s, when the real Industrial Revolution was really starting to take effect, we were polluting at a hell of a lot higher rate than what we are now. But yet, in the 1970s, if anyone remembers, in the 1970s, we were talking about a cold age, an ice age. It was on the front cover of Time magazine. What are we doing for the upcoming ice age? And then that didn't work out for them. And then it started getting warmer. And again, we also noticed that we had solar flares going on, which makes things hotter. But in the 1990s to 2000s, our carbon footprint was half of what it was back in 1940s and 50s. So I think Americans have done a great job, because we should be looking after our planet and we should be trying to do as least amount of pollution as possible. Absolutely. All for it. But I'm not willing to sit there and tank our entire economy for it when we know for a fact, and again, this has been proven many times, that humans are not the main cause. If you have one volcano eruption, you have just put more pollutants into the air that humans have in the entire history of being here. I understand why Democrats love climate change. I get it. You use it to make money. You know, I say that to everybody. When you have a question on something, just ask, where is the money? Follow the money. That's all this is a money grab. With the promises that we're going to solve an issue. When has Washington ever solved any issue? We have never solved an issue in Washington. So to think that giving billions and billions and billions of dollars, really trillions of dollars, to the green movement is somehow going to magically fix everything is a joke. Just like if we gave all this money to the public school system, it miraculously was going to be better. If we gave all this money to fighting crime, it was going to get better. It's not. We're going to give all this money to fighting drugs. It got worse. Money is not the answer. You cannot spend your way out of anything. But liberals love it. Liberals love it because it gives them control. It gives them control over everything. And they can use it to make you a victim, to scare you, and make that emotional attachment that somebody is wronging you. And therefore, they need to pay the price for it. That is the Democrat Handbook 101. And on that, you have the D.C. mayor freaking out because Texas and Arizona are sending illegal immigrants to their city. So it's just a nice little intro into this one. Listen, Donald Trump didn't solve all the issues either. So I don't know why you think that Donald Trump is the end-all be-all. Donald Trump lives rent-free in every liberal's head. And I don't know why. I guess he forever will. Because they're scared, you're scared to death of him actually getting back in the office. Because again, he did, for all of his faults, he did have the best economy in the 4 years that he was president. And just remember, for all those years, you had liberals literally banging on his door for impeachment every day. And he still got everything done. And I'm not even going to get into that today on all his accomplishments. Because he accomplished more in 4 years than probably the last 5 presidents combined. Next to, I think the only one that did more was probably Ronald Reagan. He had 8 years to do it. But that's for another conversation. So the mayor of Washington, D.C., I think this is quite hilarious, is looking to have the National Guard mobilized in an effort to deal with migrants who are being bussed in from southern states. First of all, to Texas and Arizona, God bless you. God bless you. I love it. If this is what President Biden wants, he doesn't want to close the borders. He doesn't want to sit there and do what's necessary to stop the mass influx of illegal immigrants. Send them up to D.C. They're getting busloads after busloads, and she is now calling it a humanitarian crisis. And it is. It always has been. But it's funny how she did not care about the humanitarian crisis in Arizona and in Texas. But now she cares because it's hitting her right at home. And again, kudos to all these governors and mayors that are using their money to bus them up there. And now they're complaining that, well, they don't see anybody. So now these are the illegal immigrants. They're complaining that they don't see anyone from the mayor's office. They don't see anyone from Latino Affairs. These are all your liberal outfits. You're not seeing anything from the federal government. Sitting there saying, welcome, how can we help you? That's what they want. They want to be welcomed and say, hey, how can we help you guys? Because they feel nobody wants to touch it because it's a hot potato. It is. It's a hot potato that Democrats and liberals have created. They have created it. And now they don't want to deal with it. They don't mind creating this problem when it doesn't directly affect them. But when it does affect them, they're going to cry. And now the mayor is crying that all the illegal immigrants are taking up all the spots in the homeless shelters. So she wants the National Guard to be called up indefinitely. To handle this crisis. And what she's finding out is that when push comes to shove, liberals don't care one damn bit about these illegal immigrants. They don't care about them. on any level, other than the fact that they're here so that one day they're going to be voters because they're going to go on the government assistance programs, and then they're going to be registered illegally to vote. That's their ultimate goal. Remember, Democrats need a permanent underclass. They need a permanent underclass that is dependent on them to live their lives. That is what liberals need to survive. Like oil is the lifeline of the economy, a permanent underclass is the lifeline of a liberal. That is a fact. Whether it's at a national level, at a state level, or at a local level. We do it here in the city. We call it affordable housing. We call it affordable housing. It's not meant to increase our economy because, again, affordable housing doesn't do that. That has been proven time and time again. That is time and time again. Affordable housing does not increase economic activity in a city. What it does is increase the strain on public services, like the police department, like the Board of Ed. That it does. Again, that's hardcore proof right there. But again, liberals don't care about that aspect. All they care about is, historically, their votes for us. These people vote for us. So therefore, we want to bring more in so we can maintain power. That's what it's all about. Very, very interesting. So, and then I saw this story, which I found comical at best, because how much I don't know why Republicans are pissed about this, but let's talk about it. We got a couple minutes. So I was watching James Carville, who is one of my favorite people. He's one of my favorite liberals of all time. Is James Carville, because listen, he's unapologetic about where he stands, and I love that. If you're going to be a liberal, be a liberal. Be honest about it. I respect that more. And the conversation was, again, I was watching CNN, which is one of those things I usually don't watch. And he was having a discussion with one of the anchors, and they were talking about Democrats supporting extremist Republican candidates in places where they can. So, I forget where they were talking. I think it was Virginia, where it's an open primary. You can vote for whoever you want. So you don't have to just vote. Here in Connecticut, if you're a Democrat, you vote in a Democrat. If you're a Republican, you vote in a Republican. If you're an independent, you don't vote in anything in a primary. So what James Carville is saying is that he has no problem with Democrats crossing over to support extreme candidates that they feel is extremist Republican candidates, because they think they have an easier shot at beating them. Now, for any Republican who is a big fan of this man right here, right there, the great Rush Limbaugh, if you're a fan of the great Rush Limbaugh, there is no way that a Republican could sit there and get mad at Democrats who want to support extremist Republican candidates. Because does anyone remember the Operation Chaos that Rush Limbaugh pioneered back, I think it was 2016, right? Oh, yeah, 2008? Yeah, 2008, during the Democratic primary, when it was Barack Obama. It was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Or was it Hillary Clinton? Hell, I don't remember which one it was. Okay, but whatever it is. Rush Limbaugh was advocating Republicans to go and vote against Hillary Clinton or vote for Hillary. It was one or the other. Forget who the two opponents were. But he's saying, go vote in the Democratic primary to get the candidate that we want. So any Republican that is against this, what the Democrats are doing, but wasn't against it when Rush Limbaugh suggested do it. And again, it worked because a lot of people did go out and do it. Remember, Rush Limbaugh had 30 million people that watched his show. And people went out there and did it, and it worked in some areas. Let's not be hypocritical. If we're willing to do it when we think it's funny and interesting to do, you can't be sitting there bitching about Democrats when they do it. If you have an open primary in your state, maybe that's your first problem. Thank you. Was it Hillary and Obama? If you have open primaries in your state, there's your first problem. That's maybe where you focus your energy on making sure it's a closed one. Here in Connecticut, we don't have the problem because, again, it is closed. What we need to be fighting for is just make sure that we have IDs for all for voting. Because that's the only way you can guarantee yourself that you have a fair and free election. You need an ID to do anything in this country. Hell, to get into the Democratic National Committee, you need an ID. If you need an ID to get in there, why would you not need one to vote? I think voting is more important than getting into a convention. Or get into any other kind of federal building. You need an ID. You can't go visit your congressperson without an ID. But yeah, voting, no, don't worry about it. No. Just doesn't make any sense. So again, if Democrats want to sit there and go ahead and vote in Republican primaries, knock yourself out. Go for it. I don't really care. It's your right as an American. If your state says it's okay, go do it. Go do it. It's all fair game. So we only have a couple minutes. I wanted to talk about this story. We'll do this next week about cash bails and leaving people on in jail. We'll talk about that next week because I think that's going to take a little bit of time to go through. If we get to the root cause of why people are in jail for extended periods of time on cash bails, it also goes with sentencing and all that other kind of good stuff. So we'll talk about that next week. But I did talk about this last week. One of our frequent, he was a guest on the show. He does watch the show a lot. I did have the opportunity last night to go to Corporal Rayolette's retirement party. It was well attended, and it was great to see everybody there. But there is a great article. Actually, there was two articles. So if you use the digital, like for me, I read the digital paper. So if you read the first article that's on the front page, it only takes you through 2 pages. Then there's an additional article on Corporal Orlett on one of the other pages. So make sure you read both pages. It was a great piece. It really highlights what our police officers do. And the large amount of police officers that we are at risk of losing over the next year and a half. I think there's 20 that are eligible for retirement. And these are officers that have spent decades here protecting our street and making sure that, everybody lives in a safe, peaceful place. And it's a dangerous job. And people like Corporal Orlett did it for 25 years in the city of Meriden. And he worked patrol all 25 years. That is crazy. And we cannot thank him enough for all the hard work he's done over the last 2.5 decades. And looking at some of these calls that he went to, I personally, I love the turkey. The turkey. For anyone who did not read the piece, this is probably the funniest thing I've seen in a while. He was called out on Thanksgiving Day, 20 years ago, to a 911 call where she was having a hard time with getting the turkey ready for when family got there. And of course, I didn't think Ray was a big cook. So when I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God, they sent poor Ray out there to this one. I was like, what is he gonna do? He might eat the turkey, but I don't think he's gonna be able to cook one. And the story goes that he got there, and of course, to my point, I didn't think he was a very good cook. I don't know, but he called his mother, and his mother walked him and the lady through getting the turkey ready. Again, these are the things that most people don't realize that officers do. I don't know why my eyes are starting to tear up. See, Ray? Come on, man. My eyes all of a sudden started tearing for some reason. But his mother walked them through it. And at the end of the day, when he stopped by, and again, everything seemed to work out. These are the type of things that police officers, you never know about. You know, you always hear all the bad, negative things about police officers and what they do. And it's just ridiculous because, again, you know, me and the chief were talking about another survey that came out where this is the type of stuff, if people see it enough, they start to believe it. I am glad that in the city of Meriden, the citizens of this city are not falling for the bullshit that City Hall is trying to put out there. Now, we have a public affairs person who's making what, $70,000 a year, $80,000 a year? And it seems that all she does every week is put out a new dumb survey about the police department. Every single week it seems that a new survey comes out about our police department. And they keep getting the same results over and over and over again, that the police are doing a great job, that we don't have an issue here in the city. At some point, you would think that City Hall would get that through their freaking heads. But they won't, because they're waiting for that one survey to come back that says, oh, no, look, we got a problem. We got a problem. Look at this survey. Look at this survey. It's ridiculous. Our police officers do a phenomenal job day in, day out. Are there issues once in a while? Sure, as with anything. And those issues are quickly resolved. We are going to lose great officers like Ray Arlett that are going to leave, because I gotta admit, I don't blame any of these officers for leaving with the toxic waters coming from City Hall. And I give Chief Rosado all the credit in the world for trying to fight this new tooth and nail every day. But we need to make sure we help them, because ultimately, at the end of the day, we're everybody's boss. City Hall may be the chief's boss, but we are City Hall's boss. And until we do something to help the police department, and that is change leadership in City Hall, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change at all. And we're going to continue to lose great officers like Corporal Ouellette. This is only the beginning This is only the beginning of what we might see if the environment does not change and the relationship between City Hall and the police department does not change. The only ones that will suffer, once again, are the citizens of this great city. And it's funny, me and the former chief had a conversation last night with Chief Kaczynski. We were talking about the police accountability bill, which is one of my top priorities when we win in November. When we go up to the state legislature, we go to the Senate, we're going to revoke the police accountability bill. Specifically, the qualified immunity section of it. That is one of the main reasons, that and the pensions, the pension structure, are the two reasons, main reasons why we will lose a lot of great officers. When you restrict their ability to do their jobs, when you restrict that and you open them up, when you open them up personally to lawsuits, you're not helping your citizens in any way. In any way. So, for Corporal Ouellette, I wish you the best on your retirement. Well deserved. 25 years of dealing with this city. I hope you had more positives than negatives in this city. And I think you most likely probably did. And to every other officer that is in the streets on a daily basis, that's why I say I appreciate every single one of you. And I think most of the people in this city appreciate what you do day in and day out. You leave your house not knowing whether or not you're going to come home. Not many professions have that. It's a dangerous place out there. And the way people are acting with no respect of the law, no respect of authority, every day is a dangerous day out there on the streets. So, again, to every police officer out there, every first responder, thank you. We love you. With that, guys, I'm sorry. I want to talk about this one more thing here. I have all my tabs up here. Need to make sure we get through all of them. Well, the ones I want that are necessity. August 2nd. August 2nd. This Tuesday coming up is National Night Out. That's obviously put on by the Council of Neighborhoods and the Meriden Police Department. So make sure you come out and do that. The rain date is October 3rd. It happens from 5 to 8, and it's over at Hubbard Park as it normally is, over at the band shell. This is a nationwide event. Obviously, all the cities do it. There's going to be a disc jockey, bike raffles, karate demonstrations, hamburgers, hot dogs, and popcorn, all that kind of good stuff. This is interesting. The fire department, Amtrak police, FBI, and branches of the military will be present. Hopefully the FBI will be going to City Hall or to the Board of Ed before it gets there. But we'll see what happens on that. Dance performances, K-9 demonstrations. It's a great time. And of course, more than 40 nonprofit organizations showcase their services. So by all means, make sure that you get out there and attend. I've been the last couple of years. We'll be there. I'll obviously be there this year too. Listen, it's a lot of fun. It's great for the family. Bring the family out there. It's a great time. Again, go meet your police officers. Say thank you to your police officers and first responders. Go talk to our FBI friends since they're going to be there. I know I'm going to go have another conversation with them. Like I said, hopefully they'll go to the Board of Ed and to City Hall before they go there. Maybe we'll get something a little started here. But that should be interesting. So this Tuesday from 5 to 8, rain date is the 3rd. So please make sure you come out and join us as, again, we go out there and just enjoy the community, go join each other in a good time. But until then, guys, hopefully I'll see you guys on Tuesday night over there. But if not, I will see you guys back here next Sunday. I thank each and every one of you for joining us as always. Until then, guys, I love each and every one of you. God bless you. And obviously, God bless our first responders. And God bless this great country of ours. I love you guys. God bless. And as always, good night.
And a million faces formed together, made for elevation. And my soldier won't surrender. Faith is like a fire that never burns to embers. The voice of the unheard. Love is the answer.
I gotta speak it, believe it, that's how I feel inside.
I can't sit here quiet.
You can take my heart, you can take my breath when you pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. Can you hear me? Are you listening? Sleeping in the shadows could be making history. Through the fire, on the water, used to be a slave, but now you are a conqueror.
They can take my heart, they can take my breath when they pry it from the cold dead chest.
This is how we rise up. Heavy as a hurricane, louder than a freight train. This is how we rise up. Heart is beating faster, feels like thunder. Magic static, call me a fanatic. It's our world, they can never have it. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance, you can't resist us. We're rising up, rising up, we're rising up, rising up, we're rising up. This is how we rise up. It's our resistance. You can't